Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik with Figure It Out Productions. The following video is part of our Quick Shoot series. Hey guys, it's Adam here, and today we're going to be cleaning up a Sega Genesis or Sega Mega Drive Model 1. Now, I've got a few things to say before we get into it. If you don't care about any of that and you just want to see the cleaning, skip to this time code and you can go ahead and just start cleaning your console. But, so that's your warning. Now, the deal with what you see here is two things. First is this is a Japanese Sega Mega Drive Model 1. I got this a few months ago at the time I make this video at a video game store called Toy Rat in Milton, Ontario, Canada. I go up, I'm an American, but every year I go up there, and when I was at the store this year, Toy Rat was cool enough, he just gave me this just for free, which was really nice of him. So I'm going to do my best to restore it and clean it up. I know it works, so it's not an issue. It's got dust on it, and it could use a basic cleaning. It does have scratches on it, which there's nothing I can really do about that. There's also, you can hear that, a little rattling inside. I'm hoping to find whatever that is, but I don't know. But over here we got another item. Now this is something I just got recently. I was contacted by a guy named Carlos. He said to me, "Hey Adam, I got a spare Sega Genesis Model 1. I don't want it. Do you want it?" And I was like, "Well, maybe you should give it to someone else." And he was just like, "No, I don't want it." And I was like, "Well, okay, if you really want to." So sure enough, he went ahead and sent this to me. Funny thing about that is it went through a post office, I believe, in Kearney, New Jersey. Now, if you've been watching my videos for any length of time, you'll know I hate that post office. There's a lot of stuff that comes into the United States from Europe through that post office, and on more than one occasion, I've had something come through there, get delayed, get damaged, get returned, get lost, just that they're like America's anus as far as post offices go. And this one went through there and was damaged and actually returned to him. And then he told me that, and I was like, "Dude, if you don't want to send it back," he was like, "No, I'm sending it out. It's coming." And I guess this time he wrote "fragile" all over it just to make sure they wouldn't do anything. But you can see there, I guess it was dented and kicked in at some point. But regardless, it's here now, so I'm going to go ahead and open it up. Sorry about the jump cut there. I've kind of pre-opened it. It's not all the way there. We're just going to try to do the last bit of it here. And there we go. Inside we've got paper, of course. And, oh wow, I wasn't expecting this. He threw in a GameCube game of Naruto 4. This is a Japanese GameCube game. I was most certainly not expecting that. There, you can try and steal that Japanese Club Nintendo code. That certainly doesn't work anymore. Yeah, thank you, Carlos. I did not expect that. Oh, he threw in a bunch of extra stuff I wasn't expecting. A retro bit RF cable adapter. Looks like it's for the NES and the Genesis. Wasn't expecting that. A set of composite cables for, looks like the Model 1 Genesis, which would make sense because that's what he sent. The original Sega Genesis controller is actually interesting. I didn't really have any of these. I got plenty of the bean style controllers, but this one has the red buttons, which I didn't have. I only have the ones with the white buttons, so that's actually really cool. He also threw in a couple of games. Nothing I am a stranger to, of course. Sonic the Hedgehog 1 and 2. Just a couple of free copies of Sonic 1 and 2. Thank you for that. And it also came with a power supply. Now this is clearly an aftermarket power supply, but this one's neat because I can tell just by looking at it, supports the Genesis Model 1 and anything that power cable supply also supports, but also a Super Nintendo. Yeah, that's pretty neat because Super Nintendo power supplies are not common. But then, of course, we have the main piece here. We have the console itself. And wow, it's actually in really good shape already. Yeah, this is one of the early models. High definition graphics, not the way we think of it today, with the expansion port there on the back that was never really used. And it's heavy. It is heavy. There is a big weight difference between this version and this version. Now, again, I think that's because this one they took the RF shielding out on the Japanese Mega Drives, and that's probably why. He also told me he got this in the Dominican Republic, and that I should take a look on the bottom if there was anything that would indicate as such. But no, I mean, there's nothing on the back that really stands out claiming that it came from the Dominican Republic. But yeah, it looks every bit as much as a normal stock Genesis. So very cool. Now, like I said, it's not really that beat up. So what we're going to do is we're basically just going to take both of these and just give them a good cleaning, give them a good restoration, try to get, just try to make them look nice, shiny, and new again. And hopefully yeah, it'll be worth your time. Now, before we go into the cleaning, though, there is a warning I have to give you. The Mega Drive Genesis Model 1 has this LED on the front of it. I'm sure you guys know about it. Now, when you turn the console on, obviously that lights up. The way that Sega built these, they put the LED, they attached it to the top of the case and onto the motherboard on the bottom. So when you're taking it apart, you can't just take the top off, or you'll basically rip that connection. You obviously don't want to do that, and I'll show you when we get inside of it. But unfortunately, the way they attached it to the top of the lid varies from console to console, and honestly, I'm not comfortable removing it. So what I'm telling you is I'm not going to fully take this thing apart. I'll do my best, but you'll see as we go. But I'm warning you in advance, I won't be able to disconnect that, so I can't show you how to do it. But I did, in my defense, I did poll you guys about this in a video a couple months ago. I said, like, I can't take it apart completely. Would you still want to see it? And the overwhelming majority of you said yes. I think there was only one guy who said, no, fuck that, I don't want to see that. So hopefully you're not watching, dude. I'm sorry. But the rest of you, we're going to go on. We're going to clean these up as best we can and make them nice, shiny, and new. For the purposes of demonstration, I'm just going to show you one of these, and I'll show you like highlights if there's anything interesting that's happening in the Mega Drive as I'm cleaning it, because I'm going to clean these together. Now, I know I probably didn't make the greatest case for cleaning it because it just doesn't look that dirty, but I know these work, but a lot of Genesis units, they work just fine, but they're dirty. So the idea of cleaning it is that it will work again. You will bring it back to life. It just so happens I already know that these two work in advance. But that doesn't stop us from making it nicer looking. Now, the first step to making that happen is on the Genesis Model 1 or Mega Drive Model 1. You look on the back, there are 6 screw points, 3 down here and 3 up there. And all you need is a standard Phillips head screwdriver. There's no special game bits or anything. So now that you've got your screws out, I suggest turning this over before flipping it, or taking it apart exactly. You should take off the side plate here. This is, of course, where the Sega CD would connect. Now take this piece of plastic, just put it off to the side. The same with this little red thing, just another piece of plastic, put it off to the side. I suggest actually taking those, cleaning them up, soap, water, etc. That'll be a kind of a common pattern here. And then what you're going to want to do is take the lid off. Now again, this is where you got to be really careful because you don't want to rip this little cord. So you do this, pick up, and yeah, you can see the inside now. Look at that. That's the inside of a Sega Genesis. I don't know how well it's going to show up, but it's pretty dusty and dirty in there. Now this is what I was talking about, the way it's connected. I don't trust myself to take that apart. I've tried. I've almost broken it a few times. If you want to do that, that's up to you. Just for the sake of curiosity, I thought I'd show you this in the Japanese Mega Drive. It is definitely different. If you lift up, you'll notice that this part is assembled differently. Like this is just a little piece that actually requires some resistance to pull out, as opposed to the other one, which is like built onto the top part. And so you can take that away. And then you lift it up, and again, it's the same lid, but look on the inside. All the RF shielding's not there. It's definitely different. The Japanese version is a much lighter machine. One of the things you can do is you see this little reset button here. That's the other side of, obviously, the reset button. You can kind of pinch these parts in and just kind of pop this out. And if you do that, you can, of course, go ahead and take it and clean it up with some soap and water. Just kind of pops right out, and just do that. Also, the cartridge slot, which kind of showing up. Really hard to do this with the motherboard still attached. I apologize. But you can take this. This has got 3 Phillips screws on it. This just comes out no problem. Again, soap, water, cleaning, scrubbing, good times. And then over here, back on the motherboard, you'll notice if you go around the edge of it, again, if you have the Genesis or the European Mega Drive, this obviously doesn't apply to the Japanese one, which you saw because it doesn't have an RF shield. But if you go around the edges, you'll see there's a total of 10 screws. So what you're going to have to do, again, they're Phillips head. Okay, so once you've taken out all 10 of those screws, you might notice a few things. One, there's still a screw up here that Adam screwed up and didn't notice, so that's an 11th. You'll have to take that out. Now, you'll also notice that one of these screws, at least in this case, was a smaller, like, silver screw. Now that one goes, when we put this back together, this one goes right there on the left. There's 2 holes there. It goes on the left side. And when you get to the back part, you'll see that there's four screw points here. Now the bottom one uses the same normal screw that the others all did, but this point and those two other ones use a slightly bigger screw, which you'll see when it comes out. So now that they're all out, and that same small screw is the same as like that other little silver one, so you can just put them next to each other if you like. Now all you have to do at this point is take the RF shield out, which it requires a little fidgeting, especially up at this top part, because there's a little thing there, it's kind of clipping it together. So you'll just kind of have to wedge it out, but you know, you'll get it. It's not too difficult. And then that comes out. Now this one's particularly gross, so I'm going to go ahead and wash that up with soap and water and everything. But then you get down to the actual board, which, yeah, this could use a cleaning. But we're also going to take it out of the case. So in order to do that, you'll see that there's two screws right here on the cartridge slot, one on the left and one on the right. After you remove those two screws I was mentioning by the cartridge slot, you'll want to go over to this part. This is the 3.5mm audio out jack on the front. This is kind of held in there with a couple of clips. You're going to want to pull this back, and you'll actually reveal another screw right back there, which you're going to, of course, have to go ahead and remove. Once you've got that last screw out, it's time to take this apart. So you're going to have to kind of finagle a bit around the edges, because the Genesis is kind of hooked on like the controller ports, so you're going to have to kind of pop those out and just kind of basically lift the thing out in general, and you can get it out pretty easily. Just kind of get a grip from one place and make sure it doesn't get caught on anything like that. The controller ports really are the hardest part. Once you get that out, you can just kind of lift it up and out. And that's essentially the console being removed. Now back there, you'll notice that the power supply is still kind of in place. So you just kind of take that out like that, and there you go. The motherboard is now off to the side. And that allows us to take, of course, this bottom piece of RF shielding, clean it up. We can also take the bottom plastic case part, and we're going to clean this up right now. So I've gone ahead and cleaned the plastic parts. As you can see, look, it's obviously wet, but it's a lot nicer and newer looking. But at this point, you're just going to want to take these kind of plastic bits and the RF shield, which I did wash, but I don't have out here. Just put them all off to the side and start letting them dry. And then we'll get back over here to the main board. Now, you don't want to use water or anything on the board itself. So what we're going to do with the board is basically a spot cleaning. And for that, I'm going to use this. This is the DataVac Electric Duster. This basically replaces compressed air. I used to use compressed air. A lot of people say, hey dude, why don't you get one of these? You'll never have to buy compressed air again, which you could still use, but I won't be doing that. Now, this might be very loud, but basically all we're going to do is take the air and just kind of, you know, blow it at this thing and just get dust particles away from the console, because that's obviously the goal. Holy shit, this thing is cool. Sorry, I never even used it before. Now, yeah, so that'll get a lot of dust out of, obviously, the board itself. For anything else, if you want, I mean, you could also take, at this point, what you're going to want to do is take, you know, Q-tips and maybe do a spot cleaning with them. And just kind of go around the board, just kind of rubbing them down dry, of course, and just getting whatever little dust particles will come off. And just, obviously, the whole idea here is just get as much dust away from the console as you can, because that's obviously going to increase the probability of it working, and working for a long period of time, for many, many years. So I did that for a bit, and I got a lot of dust off, you know, just dry dust. But there's also certain areas like down here, like the RF port and all these things, that would be kind of nice to get a little bit cleaner. So what we're going to do is we're going to take another Q-tip, and we're going to take some Windex. I'm going to plug them, even though they've never sent me a damn check. They really should. I have plugged the shit out of them. This is also known as window lean in certain parts of the world. But all you basically do is spray a little bit onto a Q-tip and just kind of, you know, clean the plastic parts, and you'll get more dirt and grime out of there. You can do the outside there as well. Rub, you know, this area a bit. This area is pretty disgusting. And do the same thing with the controller ports over here. I mean, I'm sure you get it. Basically, just kind of do that around the edges. Now, one other thing you're going to want to do is, of course, this is the Sega CD connector, as we mentioned before. So what you're going to want to do is, again, take a Q-tip and take some Windex, spray it on there a little bit, and basically treat this like you would a cartridge. You know, just kind of rub the side down like this, back and forth a few times, and just see what kind of dirt and grime comes off of there. See, look at that. Look at that. I should have mentioned, of course, you also want to clean the underside of that. This one was pretty gross. It took like 6 Q-tips to get through that one. But yeah, much better now. Now the most important phase of all of this, like if you ignore everything else, this is the one thing you need to do. Right there, the cartridge contact slot. You need to clean this. So there's multiple ways of doing this. I'm going to use this method, which is I take this. This is a little tool that came with a cartridge cleaning kit. Unfortunately, cartridge cleaning kits are very hard to find now. They were obviously more common in the 90s. You can try eBay. There might be some retro sites that remake them, although I don't know of any in particular. I've always told people you could try the credit card method because I've heard about that, where you basically take a credit card, wrap it in felt cloth, and basically do what I'm about to do. However, some people have told me that that doesn't work very well, so I can't really offer you another alternative. But you're supposed to basically take something and put it in there. You could get an actual like cleaning cartridge. There are those things, and they basically all do the same thing, which is you take this and you spray some Windex on there, Windoline, what have you. You could use rubbing alcohol. Personally, I don't. There's a huge dispute over which is better. I go with Windex. But anyway, the idea is you take it and you stick it in here and put it in, put it out like this a few times. And really all you're doing at this point is cleaning the contacts. And pull that out and wipe my finger off, and you can see all the dirt and gunk that was inside this thing. After you've done that a few times and you're satisfied with the results, you're going to want to use either your compressed air or your electric duster and just blow inside there and get a lot of the excess moisture out, like so. Yeah, that thing's going to read the shit out of those games. At this point, you're going to want to do a little bit more of a spot cleaning. I suggest looking around the cartridge ports, or sorry, not the cartridge port, the controller ports. Also looking around this, that's the audio dial. Dust loves to collect on there. Around the power switch here. You're going to want to just kind of go there, and if there's little clumps of dust, just get rid of them. With the controller ports, you could take like a Q-tip and with some Windex and just kind of gently rub the outside and get a little potential dirt or dust or grime off of there so that it has a better connection. But beyond that, that's about all you can do with the actual motherboard. So now it's time to focus on the case here. As you can see, there's a lot of dust and dirt and grime in there. And obviously, if you have the ability to take this out and just get the plastic separated, washing this, with soap and water like I did with the bottom part is obviously the way to go. But since I lack that skill, I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to just kind of do a spot cleaning on the inside. So for that, I'm just taking a paper towel, spraying it with some Windex, and just, spot cleaning. Just going in and getting out as much of the dust and dirt as I feel I can. And of course, you can also use Q-tips to get harder to reach places, but basically that's all you're doing is an internal spot cleaning. So I'm basically content, but there's little bits of dust that I think will just be easier to use with this thing, or you could use compressed air again. Just get them out of there. Also a good idea to do that because there's going to be moisture inside there that'll be hard to get out otherwise. So now for the outside of the console. Again, this would be a lot easier if you could just take the lid apart, but for spot cleaning purposes, there's really a couple of things I would really recommend, unless it's like really gross. You might want to just take a paper towel and wipe it down. This one doesn't really have that problem. However, there is bits of dust and stuff inside the the holes here and the grid thing there. So what you could do again is just take a Q-tip and just kind of clean it that way, do a spot cleaning. But yeah, fundamentally that's really all you have to do to get the outside looking at least normal. Another thing you'll want to do is, again, take a Q-tip and kind of go around the edges here where the plastic meets up. And for that, again, I suggest, as always, spray a little bit of Windex on there and just kind of, dig into the groove a little bit. You'll hear that noise probably, but it's nothing to worry about. And you'll get in just enough to come out with a little bit of dirt and grime. Again, depending on how clean or dirty your particular console is. But again, the end game is to make it look a lot more presentable. So at this point, I'm satisfied with the condition that the plastic is in, so I'm just going to let it sit and dry. Not so much the outside here, because obviously we didn't get it fully wet, but the bottom half, as you might recall, was totally drenched and soaked. So it's best to just leave it alone, let it sit out, let it air dry. You could dry it with a towel if you're in a huge rush, but honestly, I think it's a lot more thorough and better to just let it air dry. Since Carlos was cool enough to throw in a Genesis game for us to clean, I thought, what the hell, I'll go ahead and show you that so that you guys can know how to do this in case you don't. Simple. All you do is, again, take a Q-tip, take some Windex, put it right on there, and just rub it along the contacts on the inside like this, back and forth a few times. Then you'll come up with a bunch of dirt and stuff, and then you flip it over to the other side and use the other clean side and go back and forth a few times. And depending on how dirty the game is, knows how many times you should go back and use other Q-tips. But once you're satisfied, go ahead and take the dry side and just go back and forth a few more times, and you'll get a lot of the dirt and grime that's built up over the years off of there. And yeah, after that, it should work every single time. Thought I'd also show you guys how to clean up a controller in case you're interested. Pretty simple process. Basically, you just take the controller, and on the back you'll see that there's 6 screws, sorry. And all you'll need for that is either a smaller Phillips head screwdriver, or you could actually just use a flathead if you want, and just go ahead and remove all those. Once you have all the screws out, all you have to do is just kind of take the controller apart just like that. And the back piece just comes off, and you can go ahead and wash that. And then over here, all you gotta do is take the board out, and it's really easy. You just kind of lift this up here, and that'll just pop right out. And then of course you've got the buttons, the little pads and everything. You're gonna wanna take those out of place and move those to the side. I mean, you could just use gravity, of course. And then you're basically left with the 2 main shell pieces, which of course you can go ahead and scrub with soap and water and get them all clean. I also recommend going ahead and taking the individual buttons and the D-pad and doing the exact same thing. So once you've done that, I suggest you just go ahead and put these to the side and let them dry up, just like the console itself, because obviously, like with the console, you don't want to put anything together when it's still wet. But there's more you can do with the controller itself. Now this is a common issue with controllers from this era, is sometimes buttons will just stop working, although I don't think that's the case with this one. But what you can do is you can improve the contact. So all you have to do for that, again, our friend Windex and Q-tips, and you just kind of take this and just kind of rub along these connection points that you see here, and you'll see that there is some grime that, let's see how well that shows up, I don't know, but there is some dirt and grime that kind of comes off, and by getting rid of that, you'll improve the probability of a strong, solid connection. So yeah, that's about it. I mean, I just recommend doing that on both sides, of course, here as well. I mean, this is actually the more important side, but yeah, you get the idea. Just kind of go across with the Q-tip on all of these points, maybe a little bit more thoroughly than I am doing in this video, but yeah, you'll get some dirt off of there, and then of course go back with the dry side and just get it all nice and clean. So once all the parts are dry, it's time to go ahead and put it back together. So I'm just going to take the board and put it away for a second. Now what you should do is of course take the front of the controller and line up your buttons, and of course they go A, B, C, so you just kind of have to figure out, you just kind of place it in there in the way that it fits. In most cases it can only go in one way, so you can't really screw it up, but if you want to check, you can look back and see that it works just fine. Same with the start button here. I believe it goes this way? No. Perhaps this way. Yes, look at that. That works. Then you go ahead and put in the D-pad as well and get that back into place, which again has its own way of going in. You just kind of have to figure out what that is. And there we go. And then take the little, whatever the hell you want to call that, and then put that into place. Let that sit there. And then take each one of these and just kind of sit them over the appropriate points, and you're basically good to go with this part. And then all you got to do is take this part and line it up. Now there's like 6 little points that it will fit into, as you can see there, and then just kind of, you know, wrap this here around. Now you kind of got to hold it together a little bit because it obviously wants to fall apart, but you go ahead and take the back piece and put it on just like that, and then go ahead and take your 6 screws and put it right back together. And there you go, the controller's back together, and I think it looks a lot better. So it's all dry finally, so it's time to put the console back together. So we got our bottom piece here, and you're going to start with your RF shield, and there's really only one way this can go into place, so just kind of fit it in there. And we have it. There you go. Now there's one thing you have to acknowledge when you're doing this, which is that this little clip part will ultimately have to come up over the board. So I kind of suggest bending it a little, because it bends easily, so you can bend it back into place later. Now what you're going to do at this point is take the motherboard right here and just kind of flip it into position, and it should sit in there pretty easily. And you want to get things like the controller ports lined up there and make sure it's just in place. And that would mean, of course, having to get that little part out I told you about. So make sure that's there and let that sit up at this point. Don't bend it back yet. Now, at this point, what you're going to do is you got a few screws you need to put into place. So the first one is just like a normal screw, and what you got to do is you got to put it right here. just into place there. And then once you've done that, you can sit this down, which I'll show you in a moment. You're also going to want to take your two slightly longer black screws and make sure to put them into the cartridge slot on the side there. As well as this thing. Now this is a power supply. Now this just has to be kind of wired into place, which is super easy. I mean, look at that. It took half a second to do that. Once you've got all that in a position, it's time to put on the other piece of RF shielding, which is again simple because it really can only go one way. The giant cartridge slot on the top should be a giveaway as to what direction it goes in. And once you fit it into place, you'll want to take that little clip part there and just kind of press that down. Just add some more resistance to it. As you can see, pretty simple. Now what you're going to do at this point is put all the screws back into place. Now there's a couple worth noting. You have two screws like this that are slightly smaller and silver. One goes up here on the top, and the other one goes here. See, there's two spots there, and the one further to the right, at least from this perspective, is where the other silver screw goes. And at the same time, there's four screws out here, as you can see, but the three outer ones, these two here and this one back here, use a slightly bigger black screw. So now that the system's back together, basically, it's time to focus on this side, and there's not as much to do. You take your reset switch here and just kind of pop that into place. You know, I believe it goes up this way and just in. You just take this and you fit it into the slot. Really simple. There's only one way it can go. And then you take your three screws and you put them into their respective places. Once this is into place, and of course that, it's time to actually put the lid back on, which is pretty easy. All you have to remember here is that these points, like the slider and the power button, have to sync up. So just pick your poison. Decide, put this on the top, then put this on the top. You put this on the bottom, put this on the bottom. If that's left, put it left, right, you get it. So in this case, mine's to the right and this one's to the bottom. So you just kind of sit it back on and make sure that they all kind of fit. And before tightening anything up, you just kind of want to test it and make sure everything feels normal, and it does. So it's essentially back together. Now, of course, that means you got two things really to do. You got to take these plastic things and put them back into place, which obviously is extremely easy. Just pop it on, just like that. And of course, you got your 6 screws left. I'm just putting my Japanese Mega Drive back together, and I wanted to point something out to you. On the Japanese Mega Drive, there's this extra piece of plastic here. Now, what that's for is that the shape of their cartridges was slightly different. So when the console is on, this piece of plastic, you know, moves into place like that and locks the cartridge into place. But because of that, you can't put Sega Genesis or European Mega Drive games in the console and have it work. So actually, if you have one of these and you want to make it more region-free, all you have to do is take this screw out, which is, you know, originally right there in the middle, and then take this and just don't put that back in when you put the console back together, and then it'll be able to play Genesis games in case that's of any interest to you. So I've got the console all put back together now, and it looks nicer than it did before, which is good. However, it could still be improved, as I'm sure you guys know if you've seen these videos before. Before I go into that final step, there is one thing I will point out, that this console doesn't suffer from this, but there's a lot of times you'll get like little white marks on it somewhere that you can't quite get rid of with like a washing. And for that, I recommend Mr. Clean's Magic Eraser. It's basically like this little white sandpaper type of thing. You know, typically it helps if you get the plastic wet and then just kind of roughly go along like that, and it'll kind of get it out. I mean, this is a really fine sandpaper. And that'll help get out scuffs like that, but there really isn't any on this one, so we're just going to skip to the next step, which is to try and bring out like a shiny coat to make it kind of look more like it did when it first came out. And for this, I use Pledge. I know in certain parts of the world, the equivalent of Pledge is something called Pronto. That's about all I can help you with there. All I know is don't use a moisturizing version. I've heard that that is not as good. This is just a standard version of it. It's just an orange smelling, nice smell one. I used to use WD-40. I no longer do that just because I find it takes a lot longer to dry, and at the end it doesn't smell as good. So we're going to go with Pledge. Now this is extremely simple. Just take a paper towel, spray some on, and then just kind of give it a nice shiny coat. Just go over it like this, and basically just get the plastic all nice and shiny and clean. And I suggest, of course, doing this on the top as well as the sides and the bottom and everything, and then just giving it some time to sit there and dry. And here we are. They're nice and shiny and clean, and I think they look really good. I mean, again, there's nothing you can really do about the scratches and stuff that were on the console, but hey, it's definitely an improvement over where it was. And yeah, really cool to have these. Now I'm going to go ahead and, I know it's kind of pointless since I already know they both work, and I'm sure I didn't kill them by restoring them, but nevertheless, just for the sake of it, we're going to go ahead and hook these up and try them out. Okay guys, got the console all hooked up here. As you can see, it looks pretty good. Obviously, I have attached to a Sega CD Model 1 as well as a 32X. However, this Sega CD, interestingly, uses a PAL motherboard, so it requires a region-free Genesis in order to work. So when you turn it on, it will do this. It will display and say that it can't work, despite the fact that, it really should. But it does prove the point that the Sega CD connection is in fact functional. And since we got display out of the 32X, we know that works as well. But for the hell of it, we'll pop in Genesis or Sonic 2, which he included with it, and we'll see it fire up here. And as you can see, it loads up just fine. Sega! And let's test the controller. Seems like it's perfectly excellent. Yeah, the controller works just fine. So yeah, it works great. Now just for the hell of it, I'm going to throw the Mega Drive in there. Okay guys, got the Mega Drive all hooked up here. Looks pretty good. Inside, you might recall there was that rattling noise. As it turns out, there were 4 pieces of plastic in this thing just under the motherboard. I took those out, and now it doesn't have that problem. But does it still work? Yes, it does still work. But like I said, this is a modified Sega CD. Hence this error, but the point is it is making that connection. It requires either a PAL unit or a modded console, which is generally what I keep there. But the point was just to be able to test the connection. Now, you put in a cartridge. Does that work? Yeah, of course that works, because you saw the display before. But there you go. Yeah, I would have no reason to think it didn't still work. But my point is, if your console doesn't work, you can do what I did in this video, and hopefully you'll either restore it, get it functional again if it isn't, or you'll just prevent it from failing on you. Because I mean, the Genesis is pretty reliable. It just needs a little maintenance, just a little bit of cleaning, and you'll be all good to go. So I want to thank Toy Rat for hooking me up with this Mega Drive, and of course I want to thank Carlos for sending me this as well as the other stuff he sent that was really not necessary. And you guys really should thank him too, because of him I was able to do this video. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you, Carlos, and I'll see you all later.